Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. I am your host, Tom Downey. Welcome into the NFL and the Cowboys offseason. The season's over, unfortunately. Now we get into the changes and the potential additions and losses that could happen for the Cowboys. The one big change I want to see, and I'm sure many of you do as well, that is the firing of Scott Linehan. Now, Jason Garrett is very loyal to Linehan, and at times that actually might be his biggest flaw as a head coach. Now, the offense clearly has issues. Now, I'm not pretending that Linehan is the only problem or that firing Scott instantly solves the problems on this Cowboys offense, but you have got to find an offensive coordinator and play caller that does a better job of utilizing the players around him. Linehan's offense, remember how all offseason we heard how it was going to be Dak-friendly and the offense was going to be better suited to Dak's talents than to Tony's talents or just a general drop-back pocket passer? Didn't actually end up happening for the Cowboys. So I believe that Linehan has got to go. Now, do you guys agree? Let me know in the comment section. Do you want Linehan fired? Type KS for to keep Scott, FS to fire Scott. I think he absolutely has to go. Now, we're going to break down 15 different potential offensive coordinator candidates for you guys. But first up, one that I know I'm going to see in the comment section, so I might as well just get ahead of it right now. That's Tony Romo. Do not get your hopes up for Romo coming in as the Cowboys offensive coordinator. For starters, from a Romo perspective, he's got a great job right now. He has an absolutely fantastic gig as a CBS broadcaster, getting to play golf all the time. Not sure he really wants to leave that job. And oh, by the way, if his last name wasn't Romo, would you guys really want to hire a broadcaster who has never been a coach before? I love Tony. I think I made that very clear in the past, but I actually don't think it makes that much sense for either side. I'd love to have Tony as a quarterback's coach, but he's definitely not going to leave that CBS gig to come get yelled at again by Cowboys fans like he used to be. So I love Tony. Don't get your hopes up at all for this one. All right, the top 15 Scott Linehan replacements then. And look, we'll update this list as we get new information. This is really kind of more of my preferred list as we sit right now. So Todd Haley checks in at number 15. I'm not all that interested. I actually don't think Todd Haley's all that good. Offense got a lot better once Freddie Kitchens took over, huh? Now, granted, there's more things going on there than just Kitchens, but I actually don't think Todd Haley's all that good. He's had issues at multiple stops he's been at. Things did not end well this year in Cleveland. I'm not intrigued by Todd Haley. I know there are some Cowboys ties there when he was the receivers coach from 2004 to 2006. I'm going to pass on Todd Haley this time. All right, number 14, Jim Caldwell, who did interview for head coaching jobs this offseason. Now, has a head coach experience with the Colts and with the Detroit Lions. Hasn't actually done that much play calling, by the way. He took over as the Colts head coach before he was the play caller, by the way. Granted, Peyton Manning kind of handled most of that because he's Peyton freaking Manning. Did a little bit in Baltimore, but beyond that, hasn't actually called that many plays. Now, I think he makes some sense for some teams as an OC, but I think for Caldwell in particular, it probably makes more sense for him to go to a team with a first-year head coach to kind of be that mentor, veteran-type presence there. So Caldwell, I would not be surprised if he gets hired as an OC. I don't think the fit is quite right, though, in Dallas. All right, folks, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. URL is right there if you're watching on Facebook. We'll have news, rumors, free agency coverage, NFL draft coverage, and fan-led content on that channel. So go subscribe now, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. All right, number 13 on my list, who was much higher last year around this time. That's Alex Van Pelt, the former Packers quarterback coach. Now, we know that Aaron Rodgers is a big fan of Van Pelt, and he does have some play calling experience as the Bills' really almost full-year OC, but the firing happened early in the year, so still an interim OC back in 2009. The time with the Bengals, though, not that it really could have, didn't boost his stock all that much. So I don't know if Van Pelt does end up getting hired as an OC anywhere. If the Bengals go a different route now that Zach Taylor assumed is going to be the next head coach of Cincinnati, maybe you guys can finally get that actual quarterbacks coach you guys always want, and Van Pelt can replace Kellen Moore, who I kind of assume is also on his way out if Linehan gets fired. All right, number 12, the Cowboys' top internal candidate, Doug Nussmeier, has been an OC in the past for Alabama, Michigan, Florida, Washington. Didn't have the most success as a play caller in college. I think he is the top in-house candidate for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, that doesn't mean he'll end up getting hired. I would much rather the Cowboys go with an outside candidate in the end. But I do think that Nussmeier makes some sense if the Cowboys want to stay internal. if that's the route that they want to go, if they want to keep someone from the staff, if they want to promote him, I think Nussmeier makes sense. The other guy I'll make mention of here is Sanjay Law. I don't think either guy gets the job, but if the Cowboys really want to keep things in-house, that's the route I think they'd end up going. Now I'll ask you, should Dallas hire their new offensive coordinator, assuming Linehan does get fired, which I'm pretty sure he's going to, from within or from outside the organization? Type I for internal, E for external. For me, it's an external hire. Go get somebody else. Get a new voice in that offensive scheme to help use Dak the way he's supposed to be used. All right, number 11, Dan Campbell. And I know this name might get more buzz on Twitter in the coming days. I don't know if it actually makes the most sense because Dan Campbell, despite being an assistant head coach for the Saints and getting head coaching interviews, hasn't actually called plays before. Maybe Dan Campbell is more like, not the best comp, but a Mike Munchak type guy. A position coach who has had NFL head coaching experience, but just isn't a play caller in the end. So Campbell checks in at number 11 for me. I think he makes sense, but I actually don't know if he wants to be a play caller or if he wants to stick as a positional coach and then go become head coach because he has had interest before. He might be more of a leadership type guy than an X's and O's schemer type. All right, number 10, a dark horse name. I want to shout out Bobby Belt, by the way, for throwing this one out there a while ago. James Coley, the new offensive coordinator for Georgia. Now, he did just get the promotion because Georgia's offensive coordinator left for Tennessee, Jim Chaney. But there are ties here to Jason Garrett. This could be a dark horse option for Dallas. Does have play calling experience in college. He was the OC for FSU, but didn't call the plays. Called the plays at FIU and Miami. Now, the ties here for James and Garrett are that they coached together with the Dolphins, and Coley coached under Jason Garrett. So that's your connection there. If you want to look for another college guy, I'll throw out another name with some ties to the Cowboys. Derek Dooley, also suggested by Bobby Belt. I don't think it'll go down, but that's a name that's worth watching in general. By the way, you're really not going to find any of the big-name head coaches that are going to leave their jobs to go be a Cowboys offensive coordinator. Todd Monken did it. He went from Southern Miss to Tampa Bay. You're looking at if you're lucky, a higher-end Power 5 head coach, but even that, or Group of 5 head coach, but even that's a little bit of a reach. All right, folks, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Cowboys120 and get yourself a 120% deposit bonus. You put down $50, they're going to give you $60 for free. Put down $100, they'll give you $120. $500 gets you $600 extra bucks to bet with, and they'll throw in some other bonuses throughout the year, like my Christmas bonus that I've turned from $25 into already $125. Again, chatsports.com/bet, promo code Cowboys120. All right, number 9 now as we get to some names that I think might be more familiar for most of you. Nathaniel Hackett. He was fired by the Jags mid-season. I don't put all the blame on him because what are you going to do when Blake Bortles is your quarterback? And your offensive line actually isn't even all that good. And you've got question marks at receiver and Fournette suspended and hurt all year long. He was kind of the scapegoat. Now, I don't think he's the world's greatest offensive coordinator. The Packers and Lions do have interest in him. Of course, Green Bay has Matt LaFleur. He might just call the plays for the Packers anyway. He's had some success in the past. He is a name worth watching, if only for at least an interview. All right, number 8, Jim Bob Cooter. The Lions and Jim Bob parted ways mutually this season, and I've seen this name mentioned quite a bit, but I know some Lions people. I talked to them, some fans out there. The stock for Jim Bob Cooter, not as high as it once was. Great name. That will never, ever change. And the Browns have interviewed him for the OC role, but I think the offense Jim Bob Cooter ran, it got a little stale. I feel that offenses these days are kind of like a bag of chips. Once you open them, they're really good and they're fresh and they work, but if you don't close the bag, if you don't introduce new elements, they get stale. And all of a sudden, they're actually not all that good either. I think that's what happened up there with Jim Bob Cooter. It just didn't quite work. Now, I think he might be a better fit in Dallas than he was in Detroit, but I think the Cowboys could look a different direction. All right, number 7. Here's a name I would be willing to bet most of you guys aren't familiar with, which is not bad by any means. The 49ers quarterback coach. That is Rick Scangarello. And I did get that one right. Nice. Now, he could be an option. Here's the issue. We haven't made this point yet before because it hasn't really mattered. The way that coaching searches work in the NFL, if you are under contract, the team that has you under contract can block you for non-head coaching interviews. So even going from a quarterback's coach to an offensive coordinator, an NFL team can block you if you're under contract. That's what the 49ers have done with Scangarello. Denver wanted to interview him, and the Niners said no. So he's young, he's quick rise, like many of the Shanahan and McVay guys are. No play calling experience, which maybe could be an issue, but at some point, everyone has to have their first job calling plays, right? I mean, Matt Nagy called plays for all of, half a season and then got a head coaching job? Exactly. So do you want the Cowboys' next OC to have play calling experience? Type Y for yes, type N for no. In a bubble, I think that would be nice, and there are some guys that I want that have it. But if the best guy is a young guy on the rise who hasn't called plays before, I'm still very much okay with that. All right, number 6, John DeFilippo, who probably would have been number 1, and he was at the top of my list last year, and then his stock took a bit of a hit. Now, I still believe that Flip is a good coach. I know that things did not go well in Minnesota. That fit never seemed to work out, but again, he's less than a year removed, or I guess maybe a full year removed, from interviewing for head coaching jobs last season. There are issues to be worked out. Is he going to come in as a hired gun and not be the fully committed guy that I think he was in Philadelphia, that he may not have been in Minnesota? He was very focused on getting a head coaching job. That did not happen. Maybe he'll find a place to rehab his stock, and maybe Dallas could be that fit. He's not on my top 5, but he is a guy I would like to interview given how badly I wanted him this time last season. All right, folks, if you like what I'm wearing, it's a Mizzen and Main shirt. Go check them out, comfortable.af. They even make me look passable here on air. So just imagine what they can do for you. Comfortable.af. Go check them out today. All right, into the top 5 now of my Scott Linehan replacements. Shane Waldron, the Rams tight end coach, and also their passing game coordinator. Now, he had a head coach interview with the Cincinnati Bengals. And in terms of coaching trees, if that matters to you, which I think it does at some level, coach under Sean McVay and Bill Belichick. That's a pretty good duo to work under. 7th season in the NFL, still a very young coach. Again, no play calling experience, but if you can lure him away from the Rams, which again, no guarantee. We know how teams tend to block interviews, and Waldron is under contract. I think he's definitely got to go check out. The Bengals also try and poach him to help Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, assuming Zach Taylor does get the job, which hasn't been officially announced yet. All right, number 4. This guy actually might be number 1 if I thought the Cowboys could get him. That's Mike McDaniel, the 49ers run game coordinator, still very young, 35 years old, a Yale alum, has worked with mostly receivers and RBs in the past, but he's very well regarded by the NFL. The problem is, I don't think Dallas will even get an interview with him. Not because of the Cowboys' fault, but because, as I mentioned before, the Niners can block interviews from Mike McDaniel. And I think that's what they'll do. The Cowboys might request one like the Packers and Cardinals did, but I don't think they'll actually get the interview. I like this kid a lot. He's a coach a lot. He's only 35 years old. I think he'll have success once he gets a chance to be a coordinator. This fits the young up-and-coming guy, and I'm always on board with hiring from the Shanahan and McVay coaching trees, right? All right, number 3, Sean Ryan, and this is the Texans quarterback coach. I like him quite a bit. Now, there is some risk here. He's 46 years old, has not been a play caller before. A longtime offensive assistant for the Houston Texans, for the New York Giants. I think he'd be a good hire if the Cowboys could get him. And there's been some buzz out of Houston that the Texans would actually let him interview for some open head coaching job or offensive coordinator jobs. The Titans could be one of them, given the ties there with Mike Vrabel. So he's at number 3. But frankly, the top 2 guys for me are absolutely no-brainers. Those are the guys I want, and there's a big difference there. Before we break those first 2 down, though, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code Cowboys120 for a 120% deposit bonus. You put down $50, they're going to give you $60 for free. Put down $100, they'll give you $120. $500 gets you $600 in extra money to bet with over on BetDSI. So head over chatsports.com/bet. All right, into the top 2 then. Number 2, Todd Monken, the former Buccaneers offensive coordinator. I would love him. He is drawing interest already. The Bengals and Jets interviewed him for their open head coaching job. And this is a coordinator who kind of lost his job because I don't think Dirk Cutter's all that good. But when Monken was fully in charge of the Bucs offense, it was a good offense. Now, it was a bit more pass heavy because of the way the Bucs were built. But I believe that Todd Monken has the number 1 quality the Cowboys need right now from their play caller. A coach who is willing to adjust and adapt. You don't want a guy that's just going to just railroad your scheme through. You got to find a guy that is willing to adjust, add elements maybe he didn't have before. Use the read option. The Bucs didn't run that all that much, but I think Monken would do it. If you can get him, the Titans and Lions and others have interest right now in having him be in their OC. I think that would be a great fit for the Cowboys. But at number 1, and I want him badly, Gary Kubiak, the former head coach of the Broncos, currently serving in an advisor role. Now, Denver had actually blocked teams from interviewing Kubiak for their open OC job, like the Atlanta Falcons, for example. The plan was to make Kubiak the OC in Denver. That fell apart. It seems like they're going to be okay, and Kubiak will now be allowed to interview for open head or offensive coordinator jobs. So if you can get him in, I think Kubiak is the exact type of play caller the Cowboys want. Look, if Gary hadn't retired, he'd probably still be the head coach in Denver. He doesn't want to be a head coach. He wants to be an offensive coordinator. If you can lure him to Dallas, and this has been my top target, if gettable, for quite some time, I would absolutely love it. I think he would run more play action. I think he would be a fantastic fit in Dallas. I want Gary Kubiak as my OC next year if I'm the Cowboys. All right, to recap my top 15 replacements from, I guess, worst to best. Granted, worst is kind of in quotes here because they're not all bad. Todd Haley, Jim Caldwell, Alex Van Pelt, Doug Nussmeier is your top internal guy. Dan Campbell, James Coley, the new OC for Georgia, Nathaniel Hackett, Jim Bob Cooter, then I think a bit of a drop-off here in terms of quality from 7 to 8. Rich Scangarello, John DeFilippo, Shane Waldron, Mike McDaniel, Sean Ryan, and then my top 2 guys, Todd Monken, who I desperately want, and Gary Kubiak, who I want even more. So let me know in the comment section, folks, who do you guys want as the Cowboys' next offensive coordinator? I want Kubiak. I want Todd Monken. If I get one of those 2 guys, I'm going to be very, very happy. Let me know who you guys want. I'll be sure to respond with some thoughts on the guys you pick, even if they're not on this list. And as you get new information, don't worry. We'll have plenty of updates here for you on the Cowboys Report. So go subscribe right now, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.